When we hear the word courage, an image of fighting typically arises in the mind. Look at our society. We're fighting for hunger, fighting cancer, fighting for peace. Everything is a fight. There's this image that's very conditioned. We see this image being played out in movies, that to be courageous, we have to have a sword and a shield. That this is courage, the courage to go to battle, the courage to go to war. And it's ironic because courage is actually the opposite. It takes more courage to put down your sword and to put down your shield than it is to have courage to hold the sword and shield. I want you to contemplate that. That it takes more courage to put down your sword and shield. It takes courage to be vulnerable. When you're holding a shield, you are defended. When you're holding the sword, you are defended. When you're defended like that, you aren't vulnerable. You're protecting yourself. And it takes courage to put down that protection. It takes courage to drop your guard. And when you're not defended, when you've dropped your guard, it's then when you are vulnerable. Vulnerability is about being wide open. Vulnerability is this feeling of nakedness, that you're not covering up everything. You're not hiding anything. So we have this conditioned image, this idea, this concept that courage is always fighting for something. You gotta fight for a cause. And as long as you're fighting, you're always at war. You're experiencing struggle, stress. You're always feeling threatened. As long as you're feeling threatened, you're always going to feel fear. So you don't want to feel that fear. You don't want to feel threatened, so then you defend yourself. It's creating this big block. You close off. And really what you're doing is you're closing off the life. We often hear this, that I gotta stay strong and not quit. I can't quit. I gotta stay strong. I gotta be courageous and I gotta fight this. In whatever the struggle is. Financial struggles, health struggles, relationship struggles. Notice how we're struggling with everything. I'm struggling with my marriage. I'm struggling with my job. I'm struggling with my weight. I'm struggling with my mental health. I'm struggling with struggling. So we're blocked off, closed off. We're in this state of fear. We're afraid to experience life fully. We have all these preferences that limit life. Afraid to do this, afraid to do that, afraid to do this, afraid to do that. It's really easy to spot when you see, just become aware of how much you're saying no. It takes courage to say yes. Become aware of how much you're saying no. You won't verbalize it all the time, but it's like this mental voice of no, no, no. What you're saying no to is you're saying no to life. It takes courage to say yes. So with our conditioning, it's completely flipped, this word courage, from what it actually is. When we're saying no, that's not courage. Courage is saying yes. Courage is dropping the sword and the shield. Courage is being open. Courage is being vulnerable. Whereas we have it completely opposite. It's like we have this mental image of like some Braveheart movie or something that we got to put on like a bunch of armor, get my sword, get my shield, put a big helmet or mask on. That's courage. That's bravery. To fight against fear. No. You only have the sword and the shield because of fear. It takes courage to put down that sword and shield, put down the armor, to be totally naked, to be totally vulnerable. And in that opening, that is really the most courageous thing that you can do, is to open up. It takes courage to open your heart and see how humanity or society look around, see how we're afraid to love, see how we're afraid to be open, see how we're afraid to be vulnerable, see how we're afraid to be open. I think I said that. We're afraid to say yes to life. So we have it completely flipped, that we think it's courageous to struggle. We think it's courageous to fight. If I asked you to give up, if I asked you to quit right now, if I asked you to surrender, could you do it? It takes courage to surrender. The most courageous thing that you could do is to surrender. Are you afraid to die? Or can you die right now, here, now, this moment? It takes courage to die. Look how we are afraid of death. But can you look death in its eyes? Do you have the courage to die in this moment? When you look at it, most people, they don't have courage. They aren't courageous. Call someone a coward and see how triggered they get. Because deep down they know the ego, it is a coward. It's the ego that feels that it needs to defend itself. It's the ego that feels threatened. It pretends to be courageous. It doesn't know courage. The ego doesn't know courage. What you truly are is courage. Courage is a quality of spirit. Courage comes from the heart. It's not in the mind. What's in the mind? Fear. Fear. Notice how fear only lives in your mind. Love lives in your heart. But it takes courage to open up that heart and to discover that love. That's why the more courageous you are, the more there's this opening of heart. The more courageous you are, there's more and more surrender. The more courageous you are, the more you're saying yes. The more courageous you are, the more open you are. The more open you are, the more vulnerable you are. By saying yes, you open. By opening, you're experiencing more of life. By surrendering to life more and more, you're experiencing the totality of life. By experiencing the totality of life, life is more fulfilling. When you're fulfilled by life, when you're fully experiencing life, when you're fully experiencing life as it is, there gets to be this point where you're okay with dying. There gets to be this point where it feels like you've done everything that you've wanted, that you've experienced everything fully, that there's this satisfaction, that you're okay. With giving up. You're okay with letting everything go. because of that openness, because you've said yes. You're experiencing life on a deeper level. You're experiencing the richness. You're more present. You're actually experiencing this moment fully. So in a way, you're dying in this moment over and over. You're surrendering to this moment. You're not arguing with life. You're not shaking your fist. You got it wrong today, God. Why can't you do things my way? It's not my will be done. It's thy will be done. So there's this surrendering of my way, my plan, my life. And this requires courage. It requires courage to feel your feelings. Look how most of us don't want to feel our feelings. We're afraid of our feelings. We're avoiding our feelings. We're hiding from our feelings. We're running from our feelings. Look how most of us don't like being alone. It takes courage to be alone. We don't like silence. We don't like stillness. We don't like the dark. It takes courage to be by yourself in the dark. Close your eyes. Sit in that silence. Sit in that stillness. Sit in that darkness. It's only then that you realize you're not actually sitting in the silence. You are not sitting in the stillness. You are not sitting in the darkness, that you actually are that. But without courage, that's not possible. So with this courage, there's more and more opening, more and more vulnerability. With this opening, there's more receptivity. There's a sensitivity. You're like a satellite dish. It's only able to receive because it's open. You're able to experience the subtleties of life. And it's because you're experiencing these subtleties that you're experiencing what feels like a deeper life. You're experiencing what most people aren't experiencing. But that doesn't look like some extraordinary experiences. It's literally in the ordinary. That because you're wide open and you're sensitive, a sensitivity of spirit, not an ego sensitivity where you're getting triggered. This sensitivity to energy. You're perceiving beyond what most people are perceiving. There's this richness, this depth, this fullness, this aliveness that you're experiencing at all times. And as that grows, so does the courage. And there's very little no's in your life. Life has become a yes. You're saying yes to life. And you reach this point where part of life is death. So you also say yes. And you realize that because you've said yes to death, you're saying yes to life. And that's then experienced as true awakening. And it's only possible with this courage. So as we are on this journey, we're just noticing that this courage is growing and growing. That this courage is opening the heart. And melting in the fire of love. Hopefully this helps. I'll see you in the next one.